What's the most obscure opinion hill you're willing to die on? The current edition, and also the last edition before this one, does use the Oxford comma. I'm not sure if other editions didn't, but the 6th and 7th both do. Honestly, it just makes sense. I don't understand why some style guides don't. Edit top edition. App style doesn't omit it entirely. It omits it when possible, but encourages it when omitting it will cause confusion. There is history to inform the style, if you're interested. If not, stop reading here. When it was developed, printing anything meant owning expensive metal letters that were set by hand. The fewer characters used, the more economical the enterprise was, both in equipment outlay and, in the print media industry, more space for advertising. For the same reason, App style does not use italics. It would require numerous sets of slightly tilted letters, as opposed to just putting quotation marks around whatever you already own. Those rules are also helpful in minimizing how much space is needed for printing on paper or online. Slightly shorter articles mean readers are slightly more likely to finish them. App style, the style book for journalism, public relations, marketing, and digital media. I work almost exclusively with Word in my profession, not IT related at all, and I get the same nonsense. If you can't do the basics, and you're too busy to sit in on the annual training you're offered, why do you still have a job in which you're expected to have basic proficiency with the software? This really grinds my gears, and I can only imagine how much more frustrating it is for you guys. I worked in IT for over 15 years, and I sometimes wondered how some people even find their way from home to work. I worked mostly in banks, and all of the people there had at least a bachelor's, but they still don't know how to use software that they use every day for 5-10 years. Always the same calls with the same stupid problems. It's always funny to watch the tickets roll in after a holiday weekend for shit that never comes up after a regular weekend. Janet in accounting can keep her password in her head for 2 days, but 3 is a bridge too far. Oh, and can you show me how to open these Excel files while you're at it? To be fair, I have remember 5 passwords to log into my work tool. Each of them has to be minimum security, number, uppercase, lowercase, etc., and they have to be changed every 90 days and can't use the same one for at least 3 rounds. I sell fucking office furniture for fuck's sakes. No one wants to steal my data. Agreed, with the caveat that language education in the US sucks and needs to be improved before implementing this. I mean, how many people take 4+ years of Spanish in middle, high school, but can only remember basic greetings and ask where the library is? Edit. There's some discussion about if fault should be placed on the students or the teachers, so maybe this will help. I've always been a language enthusiast. I'm currently a military linguist, went to the Defense Language Institute for both Arabic and Mandarin, and I'm able to work in both comfortably. Obviously my training was very different from the public school system, but I still feel somewhat qualified to speak on language education in a general, armchair Redditor sense at the very least. In my 4 years of Spanish we barely journeyed outside basic conversation and survival skills. The course material I had in middle, high moved at a glacial pace, translating single sentences and using the same basic vocab, and most of the time in the classroom you'd hear more English being spoken than the target language. If the US public school system can take students from simple arithmetic to calculus, I see no reason students shouldn't be able to read news articles with relative comfort after studying the language for so long. There's a fundamental flaw where perfection gets in the way. Trying to rote memorize grammar patterns in theory and drilling genders/conjugation/ etc. to the extent students' eyes glaze over and they lose interest. If every time I accidentally use sir instead of star my teacher stops and makes me start over, I'm not gaining fluency or confidence. On the contrary, I am getting resentful for not being able to finish expressing my thoughts in the target language. Language can't be taught like a hard science because it's not one, and small mistakes like that will smooth out with more practice and expansion beyond the narrow scope that students are working in. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. A friend asked me if her baby was cute and I said of course she is. She asked because I'm her most honest friend. Year and a half later and many glasses of white wine deep, I let her know that her baby was super weird looking, but what person tells that to a woman after she's pushed a watermelon out of her vagina? I'm not a monster. Meanwhile, my second son was one of the all-time ugly babies, like seriously ugly. I loved how ugly he was, so ugly he was cute. He's a drop-dead gorgeous 8-year-old now, but from 0-5 months or so, he was like a weird deformed turtle. I was shamed so hard for saying it. Like, apparently admitting your baby is a gremlin makes you a bad mother. I had child services called on me because someone heard me call him Elmer Fudd. It was wild to me. 3 of my 4 kids were stunners, as far as wrinkled bags of flesh can be. But that one was definitely the baby to make strangers gasp. I'd never ask anyone to tell me my baby was cute. Babies are babies, their cuteness comes from their innocence and fragility, not from their looks. Everything we think we know about Captain Kirk is wrong. Constantly sleeping with women, false. He had only a small number of flings in the show. It was not a prevalent thing. Riker was far more prolific, breaking the rules all the time, false. Kirk was a strict, by-the-book military man who broke regs only in extreme circumstances. Shatner overacts, mostly false. 99% of the time, he plays Kirk totally straight. There are a small number of wild moments on the show where Shatner plays it big, and those moments have become infamous. However, they are the exception, not the norm. I absolutely agree. Kirk, and the rest of the crew honestly, was horrible mischaracterized in the reboot movies. Kirk was charismatic, confident and extremely intelligent. He was a gifted captain because he understood and respected his crew members, and they respected him. He deeply believed in Starfleet's mission and worked within its structure. He was adventurous and outgoing but deeply principled. The reboots turned him into a cocky playboy whom everyone hated. The reboots are fun enough movies, but they kinda lost the spirit of Star Trek. It's insane to me that when you look up the picture with a cornucopia, almost all of the results have the same cornucopia, but yet they insist that there never was one. I just can't believe I have such vivid memories of a cornucopia. The same cornucopia that you can still find all over the internet, but yet it never existed. I just can't believe that. Too many marijuana lovers make it their entire personality, and then they're always the ones who shriek about how pot isn't addictive. Literally anything can be an addiction for someone. You're not cool and interesting because pot is your entire life. You're a one-dimensional background character with a THC-flavored coating. That was my ex to a T. I make arrangements, or I'm late/can't fulfill my obligations because of it because I'm smoking. But I'm not addicted cause I quit when I had to for work. It was unbelievable. I worked nights and wasn't ready to go to bed as early as she was, and all of a sudden I'm an alcoholic for drinking a beer or 2 after work. You smoke 3-5 times a day, and you're not an addict. But I drink a couple beers a couple times a week after work and don't want to go to bed 30 minutes after getting home, including my shower time, and I'm the one with problem? I don't think so. Am a cannabis user and have explained to people that it's not cool to be a pothead. People make it their whole identity. My life isn't covered in cookies and backwoods clothing, trays. I don't have a single pot leaf anything for one shirt that says "We the People" with an American flag cannabis leaf. I talk about getting high, but pretty much only with the folks at the dispensary. It's why we are here. Edit, a misspelled word. Transporters, as depicted in Star Trek, but also often present in other sci-fi universes, are death boxes. In my opinion, They do not transport you. They scan you, then destroy you and make a new copy in the target location. Since you're being rebuilt from the scan, which occurred while you were still alive, the new you is unaware of that fleeting moment when you realize it's not a transporter, it's a death machine. And since that millisecond of knowledge is missing from every person who ever transported, no one is able to come back and warn others. And to people observing the system, it appears for all intents and purposes that the person transported. As proof, I cite the multiple instances in Star Trek when a person is mistakenly transported more than once. One person enters, two people appear, or is only alive in the buffer. I know it's sci-fi, but this really adheres to the spirit of the question. Change my mind. If you watch Enterprise, you'll realize this opinion is almost entirely validated. Transporters do scan you, then they do break your body down on a molecular level, and they do make a new copy of you at the target location out of the molecules they broke you down from. Hell, the Next Generation brought it up at least once when the one doc ended up on the quarantine station with the super raging antibodies of the gene-edited babies. They tried everything they could to procure a scan of her molecular structure prior to that day so they could transport her back to the Enterprise without the antibodies in her, acting effectively as a cure. The one thing that I don't think is ever made clear is how the consciousness is transported. If it's something like in Soma where they take a snapshot of your neural network and upload it to the new copy, then you have effectively created immortality, as you'll just be able to break down the body, rebuild it per the much earlier specifications but with the current consciousness snapshot. If instead it's also something broken down during transport like the rest of the molecules and put back together, then it is entirely possible for your own memories and thoughts to be put back incorrectly or even totally skipped over. In Realm of Fear, Reginald Barclay retains his consciousness throughout the transport and rescues several others who are stuck. What's funny is that the rest of the crew act like this should be impossible because they deep down believe that transporters are death boxes, even though nobody says the words. But there is a continuity of consciousness on display, so whatever is happening is more esoteric than a quick kill and duplication. Okay, well, there was this guy in Heiko TX named Brushy Bill. He claimed to be Billy the Kid, had every scar he had, could recall details about the Lincoln County War that you'd only know if you were there, pointed out where he shot in the courthouse, all with perfect accuracy. Somebody drove by and yelled hey at him and he went for a gun, as if he was used to being accosted. He didn't have a gun, it was a reflex. Anyway, he's probably in his late 60s or 70s if not older, and people, I think the county, I don't remember, call him into this big televised thing and basically are mocking him, and the dude has a stroke. He eventually dies of a heart attack in 1950. His family claims he wasn't Billy the Kid, and honestly I don't blame them. Why bring the attention on yourselves that you clearly didn't want for so long? Historians doubt it too, but it's the one conspiracy theory I'm totally with. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid were best friends. It's entirely conceivable to me that Garrett, it was just him and Billy when he got shot, if I recall correctly, told him to TFO for old time's sake or he'd be shot, and he'd be shot if he came back too. Shouldn't be buying pets as gifts, period. I'm currently watching that with my boyfriend's niece. She's got 2 dogs that aren't puppies anymore, and her mom is buying her daughter, the niece, with a Chihuahua puppy. Before that, there was 2 guinea pigs, a snake, a gecko, a hamster, 2 parakeets, and who knows what else. They all die in a few months because they don't feed them, don't want them anymore, etc. Tears me apart inside. Movie Ron was a dick compared to Book Ron though. Book Ron was always validating Hermione's intellect and independence, so I can totally see the book version working out, but yeah, the movie version felt odd. That's probably because you can't chemistry test 10-year-olds lol. Nobody had any clue if the actors could pull off any chemistry by adulthood. According to my husband, there is no reason for the alphabet to go in a Bkdfkj order. He will die on this hill, and I will be the one to kill him on it if he brings this up again. Important note, I homeschool our two very young children and he is squandering my teachings with his devil's alphabet, lol. Why does whitish red, that is pink, get so much attention? It's not like there's a ton of pink things around that it needs to be such a common word. Why don't we have a word for light green that everyone knows and gets tons of usage? Blue has periwinkle, I guess, but that's nowhere near as popular as pink, and I legit can't think of an analogous one for green. Maybe sage? I don't know. And that's the problem. 4-year university degrees that require courses that have nothing to do with majors are bullshit. I understand being well-rounded and learning, but isn't it the point of high school? Why is it acceptable to make students spend extra years and thousands of dollars on courses they're never going to use? I think the courses are great, yes, but they shouldn't be mandatory, especially when it puts extra financial strain for no real reason anymore on students already thousands of dollars in debt. I'm a veteran does not make your experiences or opinions more valid than anyone else's. Unless you're a WI vet, being a veteran at best makes you a tool of the military-industrial complex, or at worst a war criminal. The Army has done zilch to actually defend the US from foreign aggressors since 1945, and I'm tired of being expected to pretend otherwise. I mean, that's not a Christmas movie. Look, it goes like this. Guy flies out to see his wife on Christmas Eve, goes through a perilous trial, during which he talks to a guardian angel figure he can't really see, and comes out of it with a better appreciation for his family and how to be a good husband and father, and then it snows at the end. That's like the definition of a Christmas movie. In political discussion, as soon as you start using labels, Democrat, Republican, capitalism, socialist, etc., 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 seriously, you are going to alienate 95% of your audience because labels have a different definition for everyone. I've heard staunch supporters of capitalism describe it with attributes I would use to describe socialism, vice versa, Democrats and Republicans, communism and fascism, etc., etc., etc. Seriously, stop using labels in your political conversations and suddenly everyone is on the same side. Then dissect the language of those you get news from and listen to. Do they use labels like weapons? Okay, stop and think about what they're actually saying. I've heard Tucker Carlson supports socialist ideals, but because he doesn't call that socialism he can imply it's capitalism. Rachel Maddow does the same shit in reverse. So much media is guilty of using labels to allow the viewer to blindly fill in the gaps that it's made them virtually worthless as sources of reasonable information. Stop using labels in political speech. Challenge those who do to actually fully explain a policy they want without labels. Here's the thing with Atlas Shrugged. It's 1100 pages of brilliant, beautiful, go-getter industrialists talking to stupid, grasping, corrupt collectivists, set in a world where only half the laws of economic supply. The character names change but nothing else. Otherwise, it's not bad. No, I lie. Even setting that aside, it's terrible. I felt like Ayn Rand cornered me at a party, and 3 minutes in I found my first objection to what she was saying, but she kept talking without interruption for 10 more days. Max Berry. What blows my mind is when you get expensive food. Why would I give a bigger tip for me eating steak and lobster by myself, than if I get the value shit for 6 people at Olive Garden? Bro, you brought out a water and my one plate. What the fuck? Tipping is bullshit, but it should be some shit like tip $1.25 per person. The percent of your bill is extra bullshit. Churches should be taxed in the United States. America should return to the tax rates we had during WW2 until the American national debt has been paid. Rupert Murdoch's media conglomerate has worked to destroy America for decades. Edit. Taxes on people making over a certain threshold and companies that are profitable should pay more taxes. Other taxes that should be increased: High-frequency trading should be taxed. The estate tax should be raised and tactics used to circumvent the estate tax should not be allowed. Tax loopholes like registering a corporation in tax havens should not be allowed. The IRS should have increased funding to go after wealthy people who shelter their income from U.S. taxes.